Shine bright like a diamond. Do you remember the time you trained with Tito Ortiz? I do. Yeah, I do. Great times. Yeah. Tito was pretty good, man. Tito was pretty good back in the day. But I was training with him in the early 2000s, so I was not really training with prime Tito Ortiz. Prime Tito Ortiz was mid 2000s, Chuck Liddell era. I got in there a little bit earlier, and I did obviously get the better of him. I out-wrestled him. I took him down a couple of times, of course, but nothing to brag about. I mean, he was just a spring chicken at the time, so. Tank Abbott was a real fighter? He was. Are they actually showing Tank Abbott footage? What is this? Apparently Tank Abbott had some serious pop. Tank Abbott. I'm sorry, man. Guys, just look up Tank Abbott. Dude, if that guy competed in the UFC today, he would be an NPC heavyweight. I hate to break it to you, but Tank Abbott was fighting NPC heavyweights from back in the day. No, Tank Abbott would be an NPC heavyweight these days. His caliber of opponents were the cans on the regional scenes back in the day. Although Tank Abbott is a savage, dude. And he had that old man strength. No, he would not be like Ty, dude. He would literally be like Josh Parisian. He would KO Aspinall. Tank Abbott would not come close to fighting any of these guys, bro. Now, Tank Abbott would actually do all right because he does have some power. But he'd get smoked by Justin Taffa. But he wasn't pillow-handed. I know Tank Abbott had some serious power. But I was never the biggest Tank Abbott fan. I was always a Don Fry guy back in my day when I was watching Pride, because I wasn't into the UFC yet. They hadn't proven themselves, and Pride was a little bit more established at the time, and I could watch it without feeling embarrassed because, of course, I was a boxing guy, and drooping down to the level of human cockfighting was always a bit of an issue. But I was always a Don Fry guy. Don Fry was the epitome of a fighter's fighter. I remember his war with Tagishi. His war with Tagishi was great back in the day. Ohara, his war with Tagishi Ohara. Let's look up Don Fry. Takayama was also a good fight. His war with Takayama was a great fight as well. Don't forget about that one. MMA is a disgrace. True. But my favorite war with Don Fry was his fight with Yuki Okama. Yuki Okama was the man back in the day. Yuki Okama. You just freaking take your pick, bro. Take your pick. Whatever. Take a look at the Japanese name dictionary and take your pick. That was my favorite Don Fry opponent. Was he just fighting like Japanese guys? What was the deal with that shit, man? Like, I know that it was Pride. I get it. Like, I know Takayama's the fucking man, but still, I find it funny. Like, has anyone ever seen Don Fry fight anyone else? Like, or is it just that one clip? It's that one clip that people remember. But Don Fry is actually a beast, for real. I actually think he's pretty cool cat. Ken Shamrock would probably beat John Jones. I at least agree with that. Like, I understand that we joke around about some of these old heads like Don Fry and whatever those guys' names are, but Ken Shamrock is actually one guy that I would trust to hold his own in today's day and age. You know, you could say all this and that about Don Fry, but Ken Shamrock was a little bit different. Ken Shamrock, high-level wrestler, former college wrestler, NCAA, did the thing and wore the t-shirt. So I might even put Shamrock in the mix. I do think that he would at least have a chance to beat Gon. I'd probably pick him to beat Sergey Spivak as well, and Sergey Pavlovich. Ken Shamrock was getting destroyed in the early to mid-2000s in the UFC. Yeah, but you got to look at the guys that he was fighting. That's the thing. You got to always take that into account. Let's look at Ken Shamrock's record just to re-jog my memory. Damn, dude, this guy sucks. This guy was trash. I'm joking. Kazuyuka Fujita. You got to look at that. He got knocked out by Kazuyuka Fujita in Pride in 2000, but you got to look at Kazuyuka Fujita. I mean, the only guys that was beating him was Alistair Overeem, Jeff Monsoon, Wanderlei Silva, but he was a pretty solid guy. Oleg Taktarov took a draw with Oleg Taktarov. Dan Severn was no joke. You guys hype up John Jones. Dan Severn was John Jones's DC back in the day. That was DC in the early 2000s. So, pretty crazy. Ken Shamrock versus Tai Tui. Oh, gotta go with Ken Shamrock. He was a savage. He was a marauder. How tall was he? He was 6 foot? Oh, dude, John Jones wouldn't stand a chance. Ken Shamrock was 5'11", dude. Sauce to the gills. I don't know if Jones would be able to deal with him. Thank you for the $2. Ken Shamrock versus Gordon Ryan. Unironic prediction. Thank you for the $2, Kevin. Unironic prediction. Shamrock. And I'll tell you why. I know Gordon Ryan is very high level with the ADCC rules, but in an MMA fight with MMA rules, I think it favors Ken Shamrock a little bit more just because, again, ADCC rules, you can't necessarily stall. And there are certain things like heel hooks and certain bips and bops that you can get away with in ADCC that you probably have to have a smoother transition into with MMA. And I probably pick Shamrock just because I think it would favor him a little bit more under the rule set. Nah, I'd go with Gordon Ryan, 1 minute submission. 30-second knee bar from Gordon Ryan. You got to respect these old heads for fighting 3 times in one night for like $500 and a free brewski. True. $300 and a free brewski. That was what they were really fighting for, yeah. They'd go to a local saloon, they'd find Don Fry, and they'd offer him a free brewski and a pat on the back and a t-shirt. And he said, hell yeah, brother. He walked in, got smoked 2 times, won once. Anyone who got 1 win back in the day was all of a sudden an all-time great. And there you get the legend. Before that Takayama fight, Dan Fry was coming off of 2 smoke show losses in the same night. Just no one remembers those highlights, though. But yeah, he was put on I think he fought Wanderlei. He was put on Wanderlei's highlight reel. And before Wanderlei got that highlight reel, he was smoked a couple times himself before that. That's the thing about these old heads. It's like you can never really be too certain that they were really the man. Because outside of all those legendary fights, like Fedor's legendary wins, there was the 5 L's in a row before each one of them. Oh, they were fighting sushi chefs? They were fighting sushi chefs in Pride, dude. Thank you for the $2. Literally, they were fighting Hero Dreams of Sushi. I'm joking. Nah, they were not fighting. You were fighting Hero Dreams of Sushi's son. I'm joking. Obviously. That's fucking hilarious. Nah. Those Takayama was a savage. Takayama was a fucking savage, bro. Okay? Let's not act like he wasn't. Takayama. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Cedric Dumas. Looking like a created player in UFC 4. Literally a created player in UFC 4 that you play against that's just an NPC with the way he moves around. Cedric Dumas is literally a UFC 4 title defense. He's a UFC 4 title defense when you have 20 title defenses and all the regular UFC fighters are retired and you're in your 50s. He's the fucking random generated NPC for your 20th title defense in your 2nd weight class. If you guys play that game and you went deep into career mode, you know what I'm talking about. Good old-fashioned peach.